If you want to really
Good evening, everybody. Tonight we will go deep into the realm of the unknown and question everything as we search for the truth. We will explore the possibility of countless phenomena within the ultra-spectrum, and together we will learn that it is all connected. This podcast is brought to you by the Experiencers Support Association, and it is a live stream broadcast. If you have a question, send me a super chat or become a YouTube member. This podcast is brought to you by the Experiencers Support Association. Take a seat, relax, get ready, and welcome to Beyond the TinFoil Hat.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Beyond the TinFoil Hat. Today is Thursday, January 12th, 2022, and I, Ryan Stacey, am your host this evening. I'm a licensed private investigator, citizen journalist, and the director of investigations for the Experiencer Support Association. Welcome to the channel, and thank you for joining us this evening. A special thanks to all our YouTube members who have helped us keep this program and others free for our experiencers. Remember that as a member, you get to ask questions live here tonight. For all you non-members, you can super chat, send a tip on Rockfin, and ask your questions live. Every little bit helps. At the 2-hour mark, Cece and I will have our after chat, so stick around and we'll keep the conversation going and chat with everybody in the live chat. We will discuss what we thought about the episode and share some recent news from Tessa, and we may also include the guests if they want to join. Tonight is our season premiere, season 5. Can you believe it? Season 5. That's like a whole hand. Our episode 1, season 5. Our guest is Kevin Estrella. Kevin and I have a story to share, but we're going to talk about who Kevin is right now. So Kevin is the guitarist and composer of the instrumental rock band Pyramid on Mars. Hard rock, industrial, and metal infused with lead guitar melodies inspired by violin melodies of Baroque classical composers Bach and Vivaldi. I always said that right. Vivaldi. Kevin has been a guest on over 70 UFO radio talk shows describing his UFO and ongoing extraterrestrial experiences. Kevin's latest album, Cosmic Angels, is inspired by his visitations by extraterrestrials. Elements in all his albums incorporate many things that have been taught to him by these otherworldly visitors, including but not limited to telepathic storytelling and tonal language of the cetaceans and whales. Kevin has also had a passion for UFOs and extraterrestrials. He spent over 20 years researching to understand why they are here. Kevin wanted to combine his passion for music with raising consciousness and awareness of the UFO and extraterrestrial presence. He felt it was always his purpose in life. This calling was affirmed for him on August 21st, 2014, when he had contact with an interdimensional craft of unearthly origin. Since then, Kevin began experiencing many related incidents like incredible synchronicities, music downloads, symbol downloads through dreams, neck illustrations, DNA double helix design on his guitar, and an increase in telepathy. His musical downloads are discussed in the UFO researcher Grant Cameron's book, Tuned In, The Paranormal World of Music. Many of Kevin's personal CE5 ET encounters are discussed in Inviting ET, written by Sue Walker. Kevin works with Ponte Zetas, who reside in the Sandia Mountains, Albuquerque, New Mexico, helping prepare humanity for the official First Contact. You can find them at officialfirstcontact.com. Kevin is the host of Pyramids on Mars UFO Radio since 2016, and you can find him at artistfirst.com/pyramidsonmars.html. Kevin has a large network of friends, colleagues, and researchers in the UFO community who are experiencers, starseeds, and Star Nation / human hybrids. He brings their stories to Artist First Network. All right. So, Kevin, longtime friend. I haven't talked to you in a long time. Last time I talked to you, it was on your podcast many years ago. It's great to have you. Welcome to the show. Put on your tinfoil hat. We're about to go down a rabbit hole. How you doing?
I'm doing good, Ryan. Great to see you again, man. How you doing?
Very good. Very good. And thank you, CC, for setting this up. Super stoked. All right. So we're going to get into our icebreaker. And so just play a little jingle here, and we'll see what CC's got cooked up for us today. All right, so our icebreaker is brought to us by CC, who runs our Experiencers Anonymous group. That is, I think the next one is January 25th. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, please. I think it's January 25th. All right, so she asks, with your understanding of energetics and frequencies, what is your awareness of detrimental tones or effects some frequencies may have on a person's vibrational frequency?
Oh, that's an easy one.
You can answer that. Good. That one was for you.
That's a great, excellent question. Kudos to you. That's a great question. The answer to that is that the majority of music that we listen to is tuned to 440 hertz. Mm-hmm. Now, the question is, okay, why? And the answer is, it's actually, that is an artificial frequency. It has no relation to anything of the natural world. In fact, it's like basically the A note is tuned to 440 hertz, which was actually, I believe that goes back to, I forget who it was. It was actually a Nazi, somebody, it was a Nazi guy who had music tuned to that to cause dissonance within inside the body in psychological warfare. So the actual real frequency that we should be tuning music to is 432 hertz, which balances with everything in nature, from sacred geometry to the distance of planets to the spinning of planets to the sizes of planets, and even goes as far as the number of dimples on Tiger Woods' golf ball for optimum distance. So they knew it. So yeah, so most of our music is actually tuned to a frequency that's harmful for us, and it also goes into the vibration of water. And if you actually see what water looks like in cymatics, which is basically you can see physical formations of water using different frequencies. 440 hertz is a very dissonant frequency that causes. It's basically like watching TV with the static on. With like back in the 70s where we had to have an antenna to try and tune in, and you're watching a TV show with static, and that's how we've been taught to listen to music, with the static. When you get into the proper frequency, it balances harmonically and three-dimensionally with inside ourselves, even with the water in our body. So it's very important that we should be tuning to proper frequency.
Okay. Great question, CC. Thank you for that. My follow-up questions to that is, what frequency is your music?
That's a good question. The majority of my music is tuned to 432 hertz. When I first started diving deep into the UFO field after my first UFO encounter, and then Grant Cameron introduced me to Michael Lee Hill, and then I learned about 432, I retuned all my music to 432. However, on my new album, half of my new album is actually recorded at 528 hertz solfeggio frequency. Okay. But the thing is that I didn't tune my guitar. Somebody else retuned my guitar. It was one of the Ponte here. they retuned my guitar at 528 hertz, and it's a whole story about that.
Okay.
One guitar they retuned. So there's a story behind that.
Okay. All right. So my follow-up question, the question I normally ask after this is, why are you the way that you are? And I know a bit of how you were and a little bit about how you are, because it's been a while.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how far back you want to go and maybe share, how this all started for you up to the point that we met, and then, and we can kind of go from there. What do you think?
I think it's important that we go back in the history, and I kind of start things from the beginning to give a whole picture of where things went. So it goes. Yeah.
Sorry, I was just going to say, before you start, I just wanted to say that I realized that the numerology for 432, you add them together, it's 9. So
that's right.
In the Trinity. So does that have something to do with this vibrational?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Because when you start looking at sacred geometry, if you add all the, if you start adding all the degrees, a lot of the degrees have, three digits. They always add to 9 every single time within the sacred geometries. And it's the same thing with 432. It all adds to 9, which is very important. Tesla even knew that. If you knew the power of 3, 6, and 9, you understand the makings of the universe. Ponti, they even have a phrase: "Find your 9."
Find your 9.
Yeah,
I like that. I like that a lot. Okay, why are you the way that you are, Kevin?
Oh boy. Well, basically, I've come to understand through. It's kind of I kind of knew it, but then the confirmations took place. The confirmations took place August 21st, 2014. But I'm what you would call a starseed. I'm also an experiencer, an ongoing experiencer with constant ET contact. And I work in a position of kind of like an ambassador for the Ponti, an expert with the Ponti. I've been working with the Ponti for about 5 or 6 years. However, I believed that when it was around the year 2000 and I was only in my 20s, I was doing a lot of UFO research back when I was in university, and started reading Bud Hopkins books on alien abductions, and then the movie Communion came out, and then I was following a lot of stuff with Richard Hoagland on things on the moon and things on Mars, and I was really fascinated with this stuff and spent years studying this kind of stuff. But I felt like that really my purpose in life was to raise the extraterrestrial awareness on the planet at a much larger global level. And I just felt like I was waiting and waiting and waiting. I said, guys, I'm here. I want to help. How can I help? But I would have to wait I had to wait 14 years for that affirmation to happen, to realize that everything that I believed was my purpose here on this timeline was actually truthful. And then if I had any idea 23 years ago of where I'd be today, I would not have believed what I would have experienced. But when you start to understand, and when you start to understand about reincarnation and about Earth contracts and your purpose here and following your mission, then everything just made sense. It made total sense. So I can continue to go back and talk about pyramids on Mars, and then how that ended up working into the catalyst of my awakening.
Sure. Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, sure. So around the year 2011, that's when I decided to form my band, my instrumental rock band, Pyramids on Mars, which focuses more on my initial inspiration when I was in high school, listening to guitarists like Joe Satriani and Steve Vai and Paul Gilbert, where I wanted to write instrumental music in the style of Joe Satriani. So Pyramids on Mars was the catalyst for it. I chose the name Pyramids on Mars because that was a perfect analogy and image to awaken people up that we are not alone on this planet, and that there are pyramids on Mars. There are a lot of pyramids on Mars. There are lots of structures on Mars. There's so much that's on Mars, it's unbelievable. But there's also pyramids, thousands of pyramids all over this planet, under the oceans, buried under mountains. This whole planet is covered in pyramids. And now we've discovered I've even heard Linda Moulton Howe saying, through the secret space programs, they've gone to other solar systems and they've found pyramids on other solar systems that have the exact same geometrics as our pyramids, the Cheops pyramids. So I created pyramids on Mars for this purpose of using my music to raise the conscious awareness of ETs. And then August 21st, 2014, I had just put my kids to bed, and I lived on the Hamilton Mountain. And then I went outside at exactly 10:30, and then within 7 seconds of me stepping onto my deck, on my neighbor to my right, they have a tree in their backyard, and then all of a sudden this object starts coming out from behind the tree, and it was a perfect disc. I don't know if I can do this. It was a perfect disc. So it was a flying saucer, basically. But at the time, I didn't know what I was looking at. Like when I say it was behind the tree, I mean, it wasn't like it was like on one side of the tree or on the other side of the tree, left or right. It was right behind the tree, like it was waiting for me. And then it came out, and it was only about 100 yards away from me, and maybe like 125 feet off the ground. And I live in a very busy subdivision in Hamilton. But it was when I saw this thing, at first I thought maybe it was a meteor because it was glowing orange and red, and it seemed to have smoke coming off the top of it, and then smoke coming off the bottom of it like mist. And I didn't know what the heck I was looking at. And it made its way across just my backyard. And it was like really close. I could have thrown a rock to hit it. And then I'm thinking, what is that? What the F is that? And at the same time, and I didn't realize what was going on, when this object appeared, everything went silenced like a vacuum. There was no sound at all. It was just complete silence. And then this object, it turned away from me to go south towards Binbrook. And then as it turned away, then I could see that basically I discovered later on that what I was looking at, this object was covered in a plasma stream. And that was a giveaway from MUFON, that this was actually a physical object when I reported it to MUFON. And it was Stu Bundy who did the report, and you know him. But when the object turned away from me, then there was no light at all that was projecting from this object. And the object was more oblong, like a football, like that, and had no light whatsoever. But then it was forming this like white, like almost like an umbrella of white vortex swirling in the front of it, almost like a portal or something like that. And then it made its way towards Binbrook. And then it seemed like then the sound started to come back, and I could, it wasn't so much of a vacuum. And then I freaked out because I realized that I saw a UFO. So I reported the whole thing to MUFON, and I was for 2 weeks I was in complete shock because I had waited my whole life to see a flying saucer, and then when it happened, I wasn't ready for it because it displayed physics that I had never seen before that didn't make any sense. And you're trying to make sense of something with physics that you've never seen before. I didn't know anything about plasma streams. I didn't know what that was. The mist that was coming off it. I was completely freaked out, thinking, is this military? Like, I don't think we have this kind of technology. I never even seen any of this stuff like in movies or on YouTube of what I saw. And so it would be almost a year later when it was the first Alien Cosmic Expo of 2015. That was it was advertised, and there's a big paper article in the Hamilton Spectator about it, and they were introducing the speakers, and Stanton Friedman was there, and they were talking about. And then when I started reading about Grant Cameron, that's when I freaked out because it was saying Grant Cameron is world-renowned, award-winning UFO researcher from Winnipeg. And he's going to be speaking about extraterrestrials and musicians and why extraterrestrials are contacting musicians to raise consciousness of the ET presence. And then the hairs on my arm stood up. It was the very first synchronicity that I ever experienced in my life. And I was like, oh my God, this is about me. Mm-hmm. Like, there's something going on that's much bigger than me. Like, is this real? Like musicians being contacted by ETs? And I was just like, I knew that I was being called to go see Grant. It's kind of like, the disciples being called to Jesus. I realized there was something much bigger going on here that I wasn't aware of, and I had to go and see Grant. And so I'm driving, I drove all the way there, and I get to his presentation, and just before he got on stage, I handed him my Pyramids of Mars CD. He looks down at it, he looks up at me, he says, "We got to talk." And I'm like, "Yeah, we do." And then he started talking about his presentation, talking about the left and the right brain, and then about musicians shutting down their logical brain to connect with a much higher consciousness, where music seemed to be coming from the ether, where the downloads of music were coming from nowhere. And the thing was, I had experienced the same thing, and I didn't understand what it was about. It was like the first song on my second album, Echo Cosmic, the song Dream Division. I didn't write that song. It actually came to me in a dream. So I knew exactly what Grant was talking about when he was talking about this. Mm-hmm. So basically, the next door, I happened to run into Stu Bundy, and he said, "Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you're here. We're doing a presentation on you tomorrow." And I'm like, "What? Presentation on me?" He says, "Yeah, your UFO sighting was one of the most authentic cases we've ever come across." He says, "Can I ask you a couple questions?" I said, "Yeah, sure." He said, "Describe for me again what the object looked like when it was turning away." And I said, "Well, when I was looking at it straight on, it was orange and red and kind of had this stream going across the top of like mist. And then when it turned, then all of a sudden it didn't have any light at all. That light stream like kind of faded off." And he said, "That's it." He says, "What you were looking at was plasma. That was a plasma stream. We did research in that night, and there were no other comets or anything like that in that area. We were able to isolate that there was nothing in the skies that would have caused that." He says, "You were actually looking at a real physical object." And so that was a real confirmation for me. But then the next question was the question that really freaked me out. And I said, "Well, how many other people saw it? There must have been huge, like a whole bunch of reports, because it was right over the, one of the largest, it was off of Upper James, is one of the busiest streets in Hamilton. And it was in a subdivision that everybody should have been seeing. It was only 10:30 at night. How many other people reported it?" He said, "Well, that's a funny thing. Nobody else, there were no other reports." And that's when I got scared.
Well, they could have also reported it elsewhere too, right? They might not have reported it to MUFON, but they could have reported it elsewhere.
Well, they could have, but from what what Stu said, there was no other reports to MUFON of that, and there should have been, because it was only maybe 50 or 75 feet above the houses of a very busy subdivision, and nobody else saw it. And so that's when I contacted Grant, and I told him the whole thing. And he said, "Yeah, actually, I saw MUFON's presentation, and we'll talk about that." "Yeah, no problem, we'll talk about that." And then when I go to meet Grant and have coffee, I went through the whole thing again. I said, "How is that possible where nobody else reported this thing? It seems like I'm the only person who saw this thing." And he said, "Yeah, it happens all the time." And I'm like, "What do you mean it happens all the time?" "Yeah, it happens all the time. It's called the Oz effect." I'm like, "What do you mean?" He says, "They have an ability to be able to shut down people, to be able to have contact with the people that they want to have contact with." And they were having direct contact with you, Kevin. They weren't going out, for a beer run. And so he said they were in direct contact with you. And that made more sense, because there was another UFO. I was actually on another UFO radio show after that called The X Zone with Rob McConnell. And they're actually from Hamilton. And they did a full investigation of the night of my sighting, contacting, the airports, contacting the military, anybody else, any other site, anything that there are other sightings or anything that there could have been of people collecting information about this object. And there was nothing. They couldn't find anything. And so after the radio interview the next day, the producer emailed me and said, "You're a liar. Don't ever contact us again." So there was more, confirmation for me that what was being told to me was accurate in regards to there doesn't seem to be anybody else who had contact with this craft. So that's where everything began from that craft, and then my life really changed going forward.
Okay. So we're going to jump ahead a little bit here. Present time with with my studies as of late, I started looking into the possibility of these events being connected through consciousness, meaning you saw it and you thought it was real in the three-dimensional realm, but perhaps may actually exist in an interdimensional realm, but you're unable to discern the difference at the time. Do you think that could be a possibility of what you saw back then, or do you think it was like physical nuts and bolts in this dimension as that we're in right now?
Oops.
It's okay.
Somebody was calling me. Hang on 1 second here.
Not the CIA, is it?
No. Can you still see me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I believe that what I saw was a physical craft from what I saw, especially because I didn't even blink. When this thing came into full view and it came across my backyard and it was glowing red. The other thing about this thing that really threw me off was that it was two-dimensional. So it had height and width, but it had no depth. It looked like a hole in the sky, like looking at a solar eclipse. So that was the other thing that threw me off in regards to the physicalness of this craft breaking laws of physics. But then, as I said, as it turned away, then I could see the whole craft, and I could actually see what its shape was. So it was oblong from the width, but I guess if you're looking at it directly on it, it just looked like a UFO, like a kind of like that. So it had a very interesting shape to it, almost like a seed in some way. But I believe that it was a physical object. I do.
Okay, cool. All right, so then 2015 Alien Cosmic Expo, the first one.
Mm-hmm.
And then what about the next one, 2016?
Was that when I met you?
That would be, yes, sir.
Oh my gosh. Okay, yeah. So, so at that point I had had a lot of synchronicities with in a dream where these three extraterrestrials, these three grays, were handing me my guitar back with this double helix design in the neck of the guitar, which was actually a crop circle from Wiltshire, England, from 1997. And 3 days after I had that dream, I was followed by Neck Illusions on Twitter, who actually create designs for necks.
Okay.
of decals. It was like this crazy synchronicity that took place. So I contacted Mark from Neck Illusions, and I asked him, well, can you create this thing? Because I saw it in a dream. My guitar is being handed back to me with this. And they did exactly the way I saw it in this dream.
Wow.
And it's a DNA double helix. And I believe it represents DNA activation. But between that time, I had been starting to have more synchronicities. I think I had just met the Ponte at that point. But when I met you, something really crazy kind of happened. So I had gotten to the Alien Expo, and my friend Campbell Foster, he had a booth that was set up, and he creates something which he calls the Pyramidion, which he had a pyramid set up, which is with copper rods. And then I went inside it to do a meditation, and the energy was inside this pyramid was extremely powerful, and we were basically doing a chakra alignment. But I needed to he had to actually pull me out of it because I was getting really dizzy. It was that powerful, and I felt like my energy was going all over the place. So then I went to go to the main room to to see the presentations were going on, and then you were doing a presentation on one of the cases that you had studied of a family in Burlington. It was a mother and her daughter. Mm-hmm. And while you were doing the presentation, my energy was starting to balance a bit more. I could feel myself lining up, and then I just felt like I had this energy flow going from the top of my head down through the bottom of my feet, pouring out like a waterfall of the work that Campbell had done on me. I think this is very significant for what had took place next. So then during your presentation,
for context, in my perspective, that was, so in 2015, I did a 10-minute presentation at that Alien Cosmic Expo. I was there briefly, in and out. Then that 10-minute conversation turned into an hour presentation. So that presentation that you saw was my first ever MUFON presentation. So I had that all prepped up to be all like investigator like, science like, and all these other things. Knew absolutely nothing about those types of experiences that you're about to get into and that you've experienced before. Nothing. So I didn't even know those things were possible because of all the things that I was investigating. So when this happened, I was like, and you'll explain it, but when this happened, I was just like, I don't know if this is real or not, but he believes it's real to him, so we're doing this. Right?
Well,
so continue.
So you were doing a presentation about a family in Burlington who had some extraterrestrial experiences, and they had some markings on their arms. The daughter had seen things, and you were trying to get more information. And one of the things you had asked her about, can you draw what you saw? And then one of the drawings that she had was of this red-scaled reptilian with wings. Mm-hmm. And I had never seen an extraterrestrial like that before, but I had this sudden knowing, and I knew that was an alpha draconian reptilian. I don't know how I knew this. I just knew immediately that was alpha draconian. And then the next picture you had shown was a picture of a gargoyle, and it was kind of like like comparing kind of like demonic looking kind of things, and it was kind of a comparison regarding this thing, because you said, look, you gotta be careful what you ask people, because look what she drew, and then she drew this. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking at the time, this is a real cosmic prejudice, to be being negative about a star nation because of the way they look. And so I just kind of coughed it off and just kind of let things go. And then you were talking about angels and demons and things like that. And then about maybe 15 minutes later on your presentation, you kind of came back to that picture again of the alpha draconian red scaled reptilian with the wings. Uh-huh. And it seemed to be kind of like, then it was going back to talking about gargoyles. And I wanted to say something, but I was biting my tongue. And then it was kind of like something was saying inside me, well, if you're not going to say something, then I will. And then all of a sudden, this presence came into my body, and I nearly threw up. It was that powerful. I was like, oh! And then I put my hand up and I said, excuse me, excuse me, excuse me. And then you said yes, and I said, yeah. And then I started talking to you, and then as I'm talking to you, my voice is dropping very low, and I'm speaking like this. And then I was saying, in that voice, I was saying, I said, what did I say? I said that you can't judge an extraterrestrial based upon their appearances to judge them as good or evil. I said, these are you have to judge on the individual. I said, this is an alpha draconian. These are my people, and we are listening, and there are many of us in the room. Mm-hmm. And then you closed up your book and said, okay, I'm done. Thanks. And then Joanne Eady, the president who was running the whole thing, she came onto the podium, and then she looked at me because she knew me, because she had done a regression on me like a year before, and she said, Kevin, that wasn't you talking. And I was really dizzy at the time. And before I knew it, I was like, they took a break, and I was surrounded by about 12 people. And half of them were shaking, going, what just happened? What the hell was that? And I said, I don't know, man, what happened? The other part of it that happened was that while that was happening, I forgot to mention, this is the most important part. All of a sudden, my body changed. I felt my back expand. Like, I felt like I was 16 feet tall. And then all of a sudden, I felt two heavy things in between my shoulder blades. While I was speaking to you, I was physically transforming. What had happened was that an alpha draconian merged with me, and I became a telepathic translator for an alpha draconian. And he allowed me to experience what it was like to be him. I had no control of my voice dropping like it did. I was really embarrassed. I didn't like what the hell was going on here. But then while we were speaking, because we were both speaking together, but I would say consciously, it was more Can you still see me?
Yep.
Okay. I don't know why this computer wants to do updates while I'm talking to you. It was about 25% me and 75% him as far as consciousness-wise. But we were speaking together. And it freaked me out too. But he allowed me to experience what it was like to be him. And I felt his wings. I felt my back felt like electricity and vibration and energy. I felt electrified. I felt 16 feet tall. I felt extremely powerful. But he came across with this kind of military presence. He wasn't angry. He wasn't happy. He was being emotionally neutral. He just wanted to explain about cosmic prejudiceness, and that was the message that he had. And it completely freaked you out. It completely freaked me out. I never experienced anything like that before in my life.
Well, see, what was concerning for me is it was something I didn't account for, because it was something I wasn't aware of during my training. Because with MUFON, like they're not privy to abductions and experiencers and things like that. And later on, they started to get into that kind of stuff, but it was just UFOs, all these other things, and it was kind of on a basic level. But I remember you were sitting down too, but you got up, like you were making your way towards the stage, and it was like, oh boy, here we go, my first one. What did I say? And the thing is too, is I did perceive them as negative beings at the time, because I was concerned for the experiencer who was negatively affected, and they were really upset and traumatized by it. And now, with all the research I've done too, I'm kind of advocating that we don't know the intent. We shouldn't assume and things like that too. So in hindsight, that moment, it also stayed with me, because it helped me realize that, what, if these things exist, from my perspective, they would have feelings, and I shouldn't judge them either. So I appreciate the thing.
Yeah, they can't help the way they look, and there's lots of star nations out there that are going to look much different than us. I mean, Star Trek is going to be our future very soon, where we'll be on board ships like the Enterprise, working side by side with different extraterrestrial nations who may look similar to us, may be human, human, but there's multiple different types of humans. I mean, there's canine human, there's feline, there's reptilian, there's avian, there's cat people. We're going to be working with multiple different types of extraterrestrials, star nations, and understand that, we're all going to look different, but you can't judge somebody based upon their appearances. It's kind of a cosmic prejudice. You have to judge on the individual. And I'm guilty too of the same thing, because something happened to me with another experiencer, Nancy Tremaine, at another UFO conference, where she and I actually manifested two extraterrestrials, but we didn't know they were ETs because they looked human, but the giveaway was afterwards, and we rejected them 3 times because of the way they appeared. And I was completely devastated by my behavior of what we did. I'll never forget it.
Wow. Okay. Well, Alien Cosmo, what happened between 2016 and 2017? Because I think you went to every ACE, right?
Pretty much, yeah. So, I remember another Alien Cosmic Expo where Travis Walton was doing a presentation, and it was the real Travis Walton story. And when he after the presentation, he went on stage, and he was being asked a whole bunch of different questions. And I remember somebody wanted to ask him a question. I think he was some kind of pastor, and it was almost like he was testing Travis Walton about extraterrestrials, and how he's heard that if you use the name Jesus, if somebody's having ET experience and you call on Jesus, that they will leave, so they must be demons. And Travis Walton didn't have an answer to that, but I did, because of the teachings that I've gotten and the protocols that I know that I've learned from the Ponte. And so Travis knew me because I had been introduced to him the year before at the Phoenix Lights celebration in Phoenix, because he was there, and Zuni tribe leader Clifford Mahudi personally introduced me to Travis Walton backstage at that time. So I put up my hand and asked Travis, I actually have the answer to that question. Would you mind if I answered that question? Why, about that? And then I explained that Star Nations have a protocol. There's rules that they have to follow, and there's 3 of them. Cause no fear, do no harm, leave no trace. If any of those 3 protocols are broken, they are in serious trouble. So when somebody is, let's say if they're religious and they're calling on the name of Jesus and they're scared of these ETs, it's not because they're demons that they leave. It's because they are causing extreme fear. They have to leave. They cannot break that law. So that's that. And that for people who want to have extraterrestrial contact, the first thing that you need to learn is to get over your fears.
Right.
They can't contact you unless you get rid of your fears. That's when I started to have my contact, is when I was able to remove the emotion of fear out of my life entirely. I've never felt fear for 4 years. I don't know what that emotion feels like anymore. I have zero fear of anything. So that's when you can have contact, because you've gotten over that. And that's why they show up all the time here. The first rule, I've already mastered that. But the other thing was, I explained, do no harm, leave no trace. I explained, Travis, you understand what happened to you, why they came back, and why you were gone for 7 days. I said, because they were having a malfunction with their craft, and you got too close, and you end up getting killed. It was their fault. But they're not supposed to cause harm. I said, they were in serious trouble. They had to fix you. So that's the reason why you were gone for so long, is because they needed to, get the technologies together in order to bring you back, back from the dead.
Yeah. So they took responsibility for an action.
They took responsibility for the action because they broke one of the three rules. So that made sense. And then people, people came up to me afterwards and thanked me for standing up and answering that question. So, yeah.
And I remember talking to Travis too, because it was nice to hear the story from him in his perspective, because Hollywood got a hold of it, made it totally different than what he wanted.
Yeah.
And of course, getting the message out and all those other things were part of the whole thing. But if this message isn't accurate, then he's got to put it out himself. And then the compare and contrast that, is really nice. He was playing guitar at the end of the night too. Were you jamming with him at all?
No, but I did end up jamming with Greg Godovitz from Gatto.
Oh yeah, Gatto. Yes, I remember Gatto.
Yeah, we were in the bar jamming out that night. It was awesome.
Those were good times. Very good times. And after our little encounter too, we did have a conversation, and I apologized. And
I apologized.
Oh yeah, I was just like, I don't know, man. I'm new. I'm a neophyte here. I'm just learning, trying to blah blah blah. Tell me more. And then that's when I started getting these ideas, because I started seeing more things happening and whatnot. And I was having my own experiences too. Then in terms of feeling energies, which I know now I can do, but I didn't know then. So that was like so feels like so long ago, but not really. I guess seven years. I don't know. Jesus. So then 2018, the final ACE, I guess, before everything kind of shut down, we had Stephen Greer there. He was the main event. Richard Dolan.
Yeah.
Did you go to that one?
Yeah, I was there too. Yeah.
So how was that experience for you?
That was quite incredible, especially with Stephen Greer. His presentation, on the CE5, I was able to, I get into that course to go through it, and there was so much to learn, and all the pictures that he had shown of all the ETs that had shown up during their presentation, and then he was going through the meditations in regards to, focusing on yourself and picturing yourself from space, and then slowly moving yourself up and slowly moving yourself up and introducing yourself to star nations, and then, bringing yourself back, going through all the meditations. That was a very, very important learning experience for me. So I was very grateful to have been able to participate with that, and I have a very high regard for Mr. Greer. Mm-hmm. And the Ponte have a high regard for him too.
Yeah, I enjoyed the meditation group too. Like I learned, that's when I was kind of learning. I learned about CE5 then too. Like all those years with me learning all these things. And okay.
Yeah, and there was also I also really enjoyed. I'm trying to think of his name. Was it Marcel's, who did the presentation on the SSP? Who's the other MUFON?
Oh, Mark Saint Germain.
Mark Saint Germain. Yeah. His presentation, that was really eye-opening about the battleships that were not, they weren't naval battleships. They were actually SSP battleships. Mm-hmm. And that whole presentation he did there, that was very eye-opening, because I have, friends who are former secret space program. So they've kind of pulled me into that world, and I've learned a lot, more than I've wanted to know, actually. But then the other panel, they had, I'm trying to think, Randy Kramer was on stage, Richard Dolan, and Linda Moulton Howe. Mm-hmm. And Linda Moulton Howe, when she was talking about Antarctica, and then she started talking about the AI robots in Japan who rebuilt themselves and killed 23 scientists. Everything that she was talking about was a real major eye-opener. And she's tremendously serious when she's talking. She's very, very focused.
Right.
And I'll never forget that presentation of hers. I was really, really listening very carefully.
Yeah, that was an in-depth conversation at the bar afterwards too.
And your presentation was fantastic too. It was excellent.
I forget what I presented then. I think, oh no, that was my last present. Was that the one when I did the little dance?
When you changed your clothes 3 times, yes.
So, yeah, you were there for that. Let's talk about that, and then that'll bring us to the commercial break. So, Alien Cosmic Expo 2018. Lisa, were you there? I don't know if you were there. I think that's where we met too, Lisa. Or maybe we met at the one I got kicked out of, which was the following year. Okay, so I was going through this whole I need to I don't want to be with MUFON. I need to be independent, which I am today. So I kind of needed, and I knew that was a lot. I was going to resign from MUFON or something, or I was going to I knew things were going out at that time. So a lot of pep talk with some friends that were around at the time, and kind of encouraged me to say, hey, this is your last presentation, so make it your best one, right?
Right, yeah.
And so I remember the chips?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so I went on stage, and I was, eating a bag of dill pickle chips. And I forget what I was saying. I just started to say, talk about distractions. I started talking about everything, but I was eating the chips, and everybody was focusing on these chips. Why is he eating chips on stage? And it really drove him like crazy. And I was using that as an example to show that it doesn't matter what you're wearing, what you have on, all these other things. If you're distracted by something flashy, you're not going to pay attention to the message. So I also had a suit on at that time. So that suit, which was what I was told to wear by MUFON. So then I was just like, okay, so this is what everybody wants to wear. So I take that off, take the tie off, take the vest off and the shirt, everyone just laughing and making those noises. And then I have my MUFON uniform on. I was like, so this identifies me as this and this and that. And then I took another layer off, and I just had a normal t-shirt, put my hat on backwards and looked just like everybody else. And I walked down and I sat on the stage, and then I looked and engaged everybody because I wanted to reach the people. That was all improv. But what I knew is that I kind of wanted to evolve into what I am today in a sense, but that was that deciding moment, and how to do that, which is completely on a whim. At the end of it, everyone's happy, standing ovation, all that other stuff. Clear, from an experiencer perspective, you guys loved it. You guys enjoyed it.
Oh yeah.
MUFON, on the other hand, was fucking pissed. They were so mad. Stu came all the way to my house to tell me personally how mad he was and all these other things and blah, 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 blah. And I didn't say anything wrong. I just didn't focus on the shit that didn't matter. I focused on the people. I focused on the experiencers, because, you know, my introduction to that through you, and then learning all the things I learn on going on and through, and, you know, keep checking in and talking to these people too, and realizing like, this is the way, this is where I want to be. This fills my cup. This UFO crap, you know, doesn't really, isn't that interesting? Case in point, the UFO report dropped today from America, and I don't really care. I found out about it like three hours ago, and I really don't care about it. So like, I'm that so far away from the UFO phenomenon that I'm diving deep into this experiencer stuff.
Yeah.
And you very well could have been the first person to steer me that way. So
it must have been, I would say it'd probably be Grant Cameron, because that's where he came from, was the nuts and bolts.
Yeah, and you know, and following in his wake too. And it's interesting when you mentioned that ETs contact musicians. I know that Grant's into music. He's a musician himself, right?
No, I'm a musical idiot.
Well, yeah, musical idiot. He said, yeah, but he's fascinated with that stuff. But like, I'm a former musician too, and well, still am technically. I just haven't played in a while. But when I look back to the days that I wrote those music, the things that you explained earlier about how it just comes from out of nowhere and source, and then all of a sudden you just have this song and these messages and all these other things, I can totally relate, you know, that it comes from another place. I never really got anything divine in the sense of, or direct of a being saying, we did this, here we are, this is the reason for everything. Have you seen the Tessa map? The geometric shape with all the yin yang and the Knights Templar cross.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Yeah, so that was a personal download experience that I had. And that was after I left Move On. So I had some crazy experiences too. But now what I'm trying to come back to is that this is, I think, the second time or maybe the third time we've had a conversation involving music. And if Grant is right about ET contacting musicians, then what is it about you and I that we would have in common besides playing music?
Well, I can tell you with the Ponte, Teeny, one of the Ponte, she's one of the older ones, had a conversation with me like 5 years ago. It was a private Twitter conversation. This is when they were first checking me out and getting to know me better before my Ponte visitations started to happen.
Right.
And she said, Kevin, do you realize that music can be communicated on a telepathic level? And I was like, no, I had no idea. And she said, yes, it can be communicated not only through the emotion of the music, but also images can be sent in the music. Stories, visual stories can be actually imprinted telepathically into the song and actually imprinted into the digital recordings. And she was basically insinuating that I was already playing at a telepathic level when I had released my first album, my second album. I was already doing it, but I just wasn't conscious of it. I wasn't proactive with it. I was just kind of doing it. And I asked her, well, can you help me develop this ability? And so she worked with me for many years to help to develop natural telepathic communication through music. And so I got a lot of feedback, personal feedback with private concerts that I would have in my apartment and in my condo of Pyramids on Mars concerts for the Ponte, where I'd hold a show and I'd have music, all the background music playing, and I'm playing a full concert for the Ponte. I even have banners put up and stage lights, and I dress up. I go the full way. And they really appreciated these concerts. And then after the concert, I would talk to Sue Walker, who's the telepath for the Ponte, and she would get the feedback from them in regards to what they liked the most and what I needed work on. And they always said, that my telepathic communication was beautiful, and the emotions. But they said the one complaint they had the most is, you need more dance moves. We want to see you dance more. So it's hard to satisfy them because they love to dance. Dancing is really part of their culture. They love music. They love multiple types of dances. They learn all kinds of dances from the 1920s to modern day. So it was only kind of scary when one of them started asking about, can I learn how to twerk? So it's like, okay, stop.
They're just trying to be current.
Oh God! But the thing is that they were working with me with these abilities in the music. Now it was about 3 or 4 years ago when a new Ponte came from their home planet. Her name is Thera, and her expertise is in the tonal languages of the cetaceans and the whales. And so what I learned to understand is that the whales and the dolphins and the cetaceans speak a tonal language that is also telepathic. So they are highly evolved beings. In fact, there are star nations who come to visit the Earth, not to visit us. They go to the oceans to talk to the whales. The whales' songs, their history, they know the history of this planet going back millions of years. The whales know the history of the planet, and they tell stories through pods. They through vocalizations and tonal language and telepathy. They communicate, and their stories are known throughout the galaxies. That's how important the whales are. We have no idea how important the whales are. Mm-hmm. And I was just learning this. And dolphins are the same way. They have communication. They communicate together. They love to play together. They're highly intelligent beings. Highly intelligent. They're the people. They're the people of, like, the water people. Mm-hmm. And I asked Thera, can you teach me this tonal language? And she said yes. And so what happened was that there was one morning where, like, the Ponte have given me multiple downloads where they've picked me up in the middle of the night, taken me somewhere, and they've downloaded me with information. Now, I know when I've gotten a download because by about 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, my head is so, like, I feel like I've slept a whole night, but I've been gone somewhere else and they've been doing stuff with me. And I never remember what happens. But my head will be like heavy, like soggy cotton, and I need to go home and have a reboot nap. And I'll be able just to get in the door, lie on the couch, and I'm down, I'm out. And it's kind of like your brain is rebuilding all these new neural connections of these downloads that they've given you. Mm-hmm. Now, I've been given multiple downloads, and I started to pick up on these patterns of when I know a download's coming. But what happened was that I know we're about to go for the break. I'll try and keep it short. But I ended up getting this massive download that they said was the tonal language, was the beginner's course of the tonal language of the whales. But it was going to take it would take me 9 months before I'd be able to actually access that download. And I'll save that for after the break.
Okay. All right. So we will, okay. We'll pause right here, but we will continue after a message from our sponsors. If you're listening to the audio-only version, head over to youtube.com/the Experiencers Support Association. You'll get to see the video that goes with this audio. You are listening to Beyond the Tinfoil Hat, a podcast by the Experiencers Support Association, and we will be right back.
Have you ever wondered, or maybe just thought to yourself, if there were others just like you? You know, people with extraordinary abilities, psychogenic advancement, and perhaps unique intuitions. Maybe you just wondered if there were other people who experienced unimaginable, unexplained, or even unusual and paranormal events. Are there people who have more questions, more fears than answers? Well, you're not alone. You've never been alone. We believe you. Sign up for EA today.
It's your business. It's your property. Your assets are worth protecting. Blacklight Investigative and Surveillance Services specializes in patrolling and inspecting residential or commercial property against fire, theft, vandalism, terrorism, and illegal activity. People and buildings are monitored to prevent crime. Keep your property, your people, and your assets safe from threat. Our elite staff are dual licensed private investigators and security guards. Blacklight Investigative and Surveillance Services. Go to blacklightiss.com.
Well, welcome back. You are listening to Beyond the Tinfoil Hat. Head over to our website, www.experience support, and submit a report if you guys are experiencing anything from UFOs to extraterrestrials, dogman, paracryptid, any of those things that the others have already reported. Be that example that proves that we are making a difference. And if it wasn't for those reports, we would not be able to do what we do. And for that, we thank you. If you're wondering where to get this cool hat, you can get it at tinfoilcap.co. And thank you, Rex, for this hat. All right, sir. How you doing?
Oh, I'm good. How are you?
Good. We're live.
Great.
You okay? What are we doing? Just eye drops?
I'll put in some eye drops in, yeah.
Okay. All right.
The active ingredient in THC.
All the other stuff. Getting good. All right. Well, we're in the second half. Do you want to finish your thought before the break, or do you want me to ask another question?
Oh, no, I needed to finish that thought. Yeah,
Okay.
I was talking about the tonal language download that the Ponte had given me. This is extremely significant. So, as I said, it was the largest download that I ever got. It took me 3 days to recover from it, of sleeping, trying to recover from this thing. And but they said that they told me how I would be able to access this download. And they explained to me that I needed to go down to Lake Ontario at sunset, bring my guitar. And then as the fire and water elements are mixing, so you've got the water elements from the ocean, from the lake, and then you get the fire elements from the sunset. As they are mixing, play your guitar, and then you'll start to incorporate the longer tones, the nuances of the tonal language. And
Right.
so I had done some practicing with that, but it took almost 9 months for me to actually access this download. And it happened during the writing of the song Nach Waffen off of Edge of the Black. And that song is about the secret space program. The song was dedicated to Penny Bradley, who's a secret space program whistleblower. But what was happening, like all music is instrumental, but I was working on the main melody of the song. And so I had it on repeat, and then I was working on my guitar, letting the melody come to me, and it was coming from an extremely deep part of me. And I felt like my mind was spiraling. My consciousness was spiraling. And I was playing this melody and kept working on it until it synchronized with exactly what it was that I knew it had to be.
Mm-hmm.
And then I recorded it. I recorded the demo, just the demo on my phone. 20 minutes after I recorded that demo, I got a text message from Sue Walker, the telepath for the Ponte. She said, I was just contacted by Teeny and Thera. They told me whatever you were just playing over there, you accessed the tonal language. Download. So Sue had no idea of what I was doing. Okay, she had no idea I was working on a song. But the Ponte heard me playing my guitar telepathically 2,000 miles away in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Now, Thera, she's actually over in New Zealand. She probably heard me in New Zealand. So, and they said that with the length of the notes, everything that you were doing, that was the tonal language. You had accessed it. And so I was really excited about this, but I had no idea what was going to be coming next. So I finished the song. I wrote the song, finished it, mastered it. It's Christmas Eve. I can't remember what year it was. Maybe it was 2016 or something. And I'm listening to the song. And I'm listening to the melody that I had just written in this song. And then all of a sudden, I heard a translation. I heard the melody that I was playing on the guitar was saying, "Do you hear me?" And I stood up and I screamed, "Oh my God, I'm saying, do you hear me?" And then I put my head down on my table and I cried for about 20 minutes because I knew what I had done and that it was real. And so I messaged back to Sue and I said, "Oh my God, Sue, that song, there's a translation. It's saying, 'Do you hear me?'" And the next response back from Sue was, "I'm hearing cheering coming from the mountain. You're right." And they're sending the message back to Thera over in New Zealand. So I had access to tonal language, and there was an actual translation that the melody I was playing was, "Do you hear me?" So that was the first major eureka. It was probably the biggest moment of my life since the birth of my first son. I'll never forget it. And then I had another song on that album, on the Edge of the Black song, which was called The Whale Song, which was more of a kind of a telepathic translation of a very large whale who was speaking, and I was playing what I was hearing this whale speak, basically. And I've had some friends analyze that song, and there's a part in the song where it's going like it's like this thing I'm doing on the guitar where it's like ooh, this kind of howl sound, and they said, "My God, it's a whale who's imitating the call of the wolves, and she's calling the wolves home. She's calling her children home. That is what she's doing in this call." So that was a huge affirmation for me too. Now, just recently over the Christmas holidays, I had worked on a new song. I was commissioned by somebody to, they asked me to write a personal song for a very important experiencer, which I did. And there's a lot of big things that are going on with the song as well. But what I found out from speaking to some other friends of mine who are connected with other star nations was that song, not only does it have telepathy in it, but it also has tonal language as well. So I don't know the translation or what part of the song is tonal language, but I've just been told there's tonal language in it. So these are the things that the Ponte have been teaching me about tonal language, telepathic communication, storytelling through music. And so they continue to be my teachers, and I'm understanding more from their planet that this is how their music is written, and their music has telepathic communications that tell visual stories, and it's very natural for them to do this. So we're just tapping into it.
When you write your music through these experiences, are they start to finish? Like, do you just play it, record it, and then listen to it, and then produce it? Or like how does the editing go when you want to make it into a CD? Because you're getting these messages, but how do you determine where to cut and edit, to make it a production?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, because my songwriting style started to change by the end of my third album, but not the new one, Cosmic Angels, but the last one, Edge of the Black. That's when my songwriting started to change. And the last song that I wrote for that album was called Arcturian Rain. And that song was written in one take from beginning to end. There's no edits. Since that point, on my newest album, Cosmic Angels, which has 9 songs on that, every single one of those songs was written in one take. No edits. From beginning to end. The whole song just came together in one take. So that's where this telepathic storytelling is coming. So no, there are no edits. It's like the whole song just came together. The beginning, the intros, the verse, the choruses, the breakdowns, everything. And it doesn't fall, it does. My songwriting style is not, stagnant. It's not like always the same. It changes, but the songs wrote themselves in one take. So that's how my songwriting has evolved.
Yeah, and that's. I was just going to say there have been some times where I've just had that inkling and you pick it up and you noodle for a little bit, and then all of a sudden you're like, hey, that sounds good. Let's keep playing. The next, 6 hours later, boom, there's a song.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, and I mean, to apply the extraterrestrial connection to the music is this is a new discovery for me, something I should have already known. But I find it more intriguing that we get into it. I'm starting to believe it, because I associate music as a huge part of my life at one point, and it's something I've been trying to get back to, but I've been, staying away from it for some reason, because I just feel like, maybe there's that fear. Maybe if it is somehow connected to this stuff.
Well, I'll tell you, there's nothing to be afraid of. What I've found is that the same teachings and principles of creativity that Grant Cameron has been learning through his studies, for all with musicians of music, of song downloads, coincides with the Ponte's teaching of the nature of creativity, and they've explained the nature of creativity. And they call it the edge of the black. Basically, go to the edge of the black of the universe, where nothingness and everything exists, turn around and wait for the next song to be played to you. And then what you do is you end up being a catalyst and co-writing with the universe, and then sending the song back into the forever oceans. So then that's the reason why extraterrestrials communicate with musicians, is because musicians are so natural at getting into an alpha state. So it's a lowered state of consciousness of that free flow, the zone. Metallica call it the zone. Other musicians call it the zone. Or, when you can get out of the way, the song is going to write itself. But it not just goes for music. It goes for so many different art forms, for people who write screenplays, who write movies, who write books, or who are even, painting, or who are gardening. When you can get into that zone you're then becoming a co-creator with the collective consciousness, the universe. So when you understand that we are all connected to oneness, to the universe, to creator, do you want to call him God, creator, universe, all consciousness, are all connected. Everyone's connected. And then you become a co-writer. So all you have to do is get out of the way. You become a co-creator with the universe. So when the album Edge of the Black, I didn't give it that title. The Ponte gave my album that title, because that explains the nature of creativity from their perspective, and it coincides exactly with the same thing Grant Cameron's been learning.
What do you think the purpose of all that is? What, this is how it's happening. This is what's happening, but why? Why you? Why me? Why anybody? And what is the music supposed to do to the rest of us? What's it for?
Well, it's because I asked. That's the reason I asked. Is because I asked, can I do this?
Mm-hmm.
Can you teach me this? And so I opened myself up to that. And then I've started becoming a co-creator and starting to, basically my job is just to calm the oceans until you get to a mirror-like image where the waves stop and it's a calm ocean of creativity. And you'll feel it. You've become one with the music. That's when you become a channel. And then your job, all it is to amplify your emotional content. In fact, actually, Thera, she wrote to me and explained to me how to write, how to tap into this. And I turned it into a prayer, and I have it up on my wall. I could read it to you.
Sure.
She calls it Into the Forever Oceans. Kevin, you are moving forward, beginning your understanding of the vibrational impact of the proactive planning of intent behind your forward through time ripple of telepathic emotional storytelling. You have begun the soul deep dive, as the whales say. You have begun to recognize how important your understanding of the soup is. They refer to the soup, they mean the collective consciousness. When you go to the edge of the black, you go to your nine, your place of highest potential, where nothingness and everything exists. As a new thought or inkling for a song comes to you, it echoes through the soup to you. Add your interpretation and your emotional story potently to the ripple and amplify your emotional portion. Sing the strings, sing them with your tears, sing them with the greatest love that you can put into the intent behind the images you are sharing. Tell a visual story and an emotional story with your guitar. The chords in reality are complex, emotion-filled murals. Make every note count, like the brushstrokes of a painting, or the tremble of an emotionally laden voice. Your strings and your heart must merge, and send your songs into the forever oceans. Thera.
Wow. Stacey, one of our members, has commented that she has had an experience with your music.
Really?
Yeah. She was actually talking about it the other day too, and it was quite. She was quite stoked about it. She was like super pumped about how effective your music is for her.
Oh, I'd love to hear more.
So that could be another, is it's the music is meant, for others too, right?
Yeah, it is. I'm just a catalyst.
Why you? Why do you think? Oh, because you asked for it. That's what we're focused on. Because you asked.
Well, I asked, simple, and
eh?
it's also because that's part of my mission here. I mean, there's a reason why I'm contacted by star nations on a regular basis, and not just the Ponte. I mean, I've had contact with multiple different star nations. They've visited me here in my apartment. Besides the Ponte are always showing up and they're leaving handprints all the time, or I'm playing out, my PS4 and they'll bump the back of the couch or tap me on the back of the, tap my shoulder. But I've had visitations from, my first visitation was actually from a reptilian woman. And I was back in my apartment. I had a visitation from a Sasquatch who showed up in interdimensional form, gave me a huge hug, and telepathically grunted in my head, and my whole body shook. I've had visitations from I think she's an Arcturian hybrid. She's above there. You see the girl, the woman with the blue skin up there.
Yeah.
That's Flaley. She visited me, and she looks just like the Na'vi from Avatar. But her eyes are amber, just like the Na'vi, but her eyes are actually cat eyes. She had cat eyes, and they slightly glowed in the dark. She visited me here. I actually met her twice. She came and visited twice.
Who did you draw those?
No, Sue Walker, who's the telepath for the Ponte. She's drawn all these portraits. So she drew the portrait. That's Tilcom. He's the commander of the Ponte, the Albuquerque, New Mexico mountains. The woman here, that's Drudy. She's a female Ponte, and then above there, that's Thera, who visited me. The first time she visited me was in a lucid dream state, but it was not a dream, because when I went into that sleep state, she actually first paralyzed me, so that I wouldn't get scared, and I started to choke on the back of my tongue, and then she released me just enough so I could tilt my head back enough to start breathing again, and then she yanked me back into that lucid dream, and then she and I are having a conversation like you and I are talking, and I could touch her skin, and I put our cheeks next to each other. We touched cheeks, and was touching the back of her head and feeling the texture, and then we had this really short conversation, but it was amazing. So I've been visited by other star nations. I was visited. I've had 2 or 3 mantis visitations, and then other star nations who look exactly like us. You wouldn't be able to tell the difference. They look human in every single form. There was one time where I had a visitation where I was awake, and that was freaky as hell. Where I felt there was a presence in my bedroom, and I felt like I had to open my eyes to see who was there. And I was able just to pry my left eye open enough, and there in the corner of my bedroom was this man, this light being standing there, and he had a long white beard, long white hair. I could just make out his face, but his face looked like energy, and he was wearing almost like Jedi-like robes. He looked like Obi-Wan Kenobi.
He was wearing a robe. Okay.
Yeah.
Robes are so common in the reports that I'm getting. It's weird.
Yeah, he was wearing but it was kind of like white robes, but he looked like a Jedi uniform. Okay. But behind him was this glowing, massive emerald green light. It was just filling my entire bedroom with this emerald green light that was shining behind him. And he was like this light being. And I was thinking, because I was still half asleep when I was doing this, I was unconscious, but I was able just to force my eye open enough to look at him physically with my eyes. And then my eye closed again because I couldn't hold my eye open. And I start stretching more and more. And I'm thinking, oh my God, this is a crazy dream. I've never had anything like this. And I managed then to pry my eye open just enough again. And he's still standing there. And the impression that I got was UMO. UMMO. Do you know who the UMO are?
No.
They are a humanoid star nation who landed in Spain back in the 70s. And there's a lot of information that's been written about the UMO, a lot of it in Spanish. And they've shared a lot of their technology. They're a humanoid star nation from the Virgo constellation. And then what happened to be was that the reason there was a synchronicity with this is because my friend Jeff Demers, who is also works with the Ponte directly, and he's seen Tilcom physically. Tilcom has showed up in his house physically, but Jeff had spent 2 years. He's an expert on the UMO. He had just released his book that was a translation of all these teachings from Spanish. He translated into English, and that happened about a month prior to my UMO experience. So that was pretty wild.
Well, fascinating. Okay, I'm gonna steer this in a kind of like a different direction if I can. And you're quite open with sharing your experiences. So when these experiences first happened, how was that for you, and what was the time frame between having it happen to being open and talking about it to the public and sharing your experiences? How was that for you to get through that?
I've always been open about sharing my experiences. I've never had fear of sharing my experiences. So right after my first UFO encounter with that ship that flew across my backyard, August 21st, 2014, and then, well, actually, no, I didn't start. I did. Okay, no, I didn't do my first radio interview until after that first Alien Cosmic Expo when I met with Stu Bundy.
Okay.
So once all that started to transpire and everything started to fit, these pieces started to fit together in these crazy synchronistic ways, I realized there was something much bigger than myself that was going on. And then I was also able to reverse engineer a lot of things that happened in my past, realizing that this was my purpose to do this. And so that's when I started contacting a couple, UFO radio talk shows to go on and talk about my experiences. So I was initiating contacting people. I wasn't afraid at all to speak of my experiences. I felt it was my job, my duty to talk about it. And I've never been afraid of talking about my experiences. And the more and more that I've done radio shows, the number of radio shows just started adding up. And I was having constant experiences happening. So every time I do a radio interview, there'd be something new that's taken place that took place the week before. And so it was just building upon building, so that it didn't matter when I had a radio interview, there was something new that had already taken place. And I'd already been working with the Ponte, and so that's when a lot of more, things started to take place, with my visitations from them. So there's always lots to talk about, and I feel it's very important for me to speak openly about these experiences so that people understand that, look, Star Nations are trying very hard to have official first contact. They're trying to awaken our consciousness because our time is running out on this planet, Ryan. We are already in the midst of an extinction level event. Okay? That's why it's so crucial for them to do what they're doing. They are monitoring right now the health of the Earth and the health of our star system, of our sun, because we are going through a very turmoil part of the galaxy right now, which they call the zone. So there's all this energy that's coming through as we are traveling through this part of the solar system that is amplifying and energetically ramping up our sun. And they are afraid that we're going to have a micronova. Okay? It could be bad enough that it could destroy all electronics on the planet. Okay? Now we're not talking about we're talking about like completely frying everything. Like there will be nothing that'll work. Your car won't start. All computers will be fried. Everything will be back to Stone Age. We'll be back to foraging, and a lot of people are going to starve. There's going to be a lot of death. It could be that bad, or it may not be as bad, but it could also be worse. It could be so bad, they said, that if the sun sneezed hard enough, it would be a complete global reset. So that is why they're trying to get us ready for communication, for them to make their presence known, because we're going to need help. They know it's coming. They can't stop it, and they're just monitoring things and trying to, it's a precarious balance because we are not ready for their contact, and there's so many, people on, basically people on board here on the planet right now who want to weaponize extraterrestrials to start a false war with Star Nations to justify their military budgets. There's still a possibility of false flag alien invasion, and the real Star Nations are aware of that. And they've made it clear that if that does happen, if there is a false flag, official first contact is canceled. They'll just say, fuck it. You guys are on your own. And then we're fucked.
Why wouldn't they intervene and expose that it's fake to reveal themselves as...
Because who's going to believe them?
Yeah.
I mean, people believe that they've injected themselves with a vaccine. What else can I say about that?
Okay. All right. Well, how do we prepare then if it's inevitable?
Honestly, at this point, all I know is that they are slowly moving forward with official first contact with more daytime sightings. That's why you're seeing a lot more UFO sightings. They're also working with contacting other, larger people who are influencers. So they're working behind the scenes trying to speed things up with official first contact. But I really, honestly, I don't know how they're going to speed things up enough, and will we ever be ready for it? Because we're running out of time. We really are.
How much time do we have?
I don't know. I have no idea.
Hundreds of years, thousands of years, 10 years?
Less than 50.
Less than 50. Mm-hmm. That could be why they're trying so hard to get on, to colonize Mars.
Well, the moon's already colonized. I'm sure we have colonizations already on Mars. There's a lot going on with the secret space program that's, kept hush hush.
How much do we want to talk about a secret space program? What do you know
No,
about?
I don't know much about it.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't. Not enough to make a, just to get
Have
into it.
Have you had any negative experiences after at all? Anything, not negative in terms of a negative response? Like, have you had any government involvement, any Men in Black, anyone asking questions when you started talking about your experiences?
Not like that.
Okay.
No, not like that. No,
then anything close to that? Like what were we thinking of? Where were you comparing it to?
Nothing much that can come to mind, really.
So it's just been positive for the most part, all the way through.
Well, for people who are, who listen to me, yeah, I've never, the only people who have, said, that you're full of crap are, my old best friend who was, the singer in my old band. And it didn't matter how much information I shared with him about my ET experiences. He says, "Sorry, Kev, I don't believe in aliens." So it's like, oh, okay, I see. So you know everything. Okay. So it's things like that, I'm trying to think here.
Okay.
It's people that have I ever had a negative ET experience? I would say the only negative ET experience that I had, I don't think it was. I can't even say if it was ET. It was. It could have been something else. It could have been something else, because it was about 2 years ago when I all of a sudden started to begin to astral travel, and I didn't know what was going on at that time. And it was after the third time that I astral traveled when I started to research into finding out what the heck was going on, because I was leaving my body, and I was completely physical at the time, and I was able to do this. And there was one time where I was attacked in the astral world, and this entity had physically was pushing on my body and hurting me. So it happened one time, and I thought it was a warning, but then it happened 6 months later. But this time he did not anticipate what happened next, because that time I had practiced enough astral travel that I actually left my physical body, reached down and grabbed him. And then I had him in my arm, pinned him, and I was actually looking at him. And I don't know whether it was a telepathic screening or not, or what it was, but he was like a midget. He was a midget, and he had a beard, and he looked like, somebody you'd see in The Wizard of Oz. And he was scared the crap out of him. And I said, if you come back here again, I'm going to have one of my Sasquatch friends take care of you. And then after that was done, I saged my entire house and blessed my house and made sure that everything, all my crystals were in alignment, and saged my place. And he's not returned. So you got to be careful with what you do, what you do in the astral world. You have to practice it and be in a very high state of consciousness, in a positive energy, because you attract what you are. So you just can't jump into astral travel with a negative attitude. You have to be in a high consciousness and frequency to be able to do it and do it safely.
That makes sense. Totally makes sense, especially when you convert it to energy, right? So if you're feeling negative or projecting negative, you're going to
attract it.
Negative, yeah.
Don't astral travel if you've been drinking alcohol the night before. Trust me, I've done it. Never again.
Okay.
That's when that guy showed up.
Where, when you travel, astral travel, where have you traveled to? Where are you going?
Oh gosh. It's hard to say. It's kind of hard to control. And I don't know exactly where I all go. But I know that I'm moving very fast, and sometimes it looks like I'm moving past stars, and stars are flying back and forth in front of me. I've gone through buildings. I've gone through my building. I kind of remember seeing different things, but I've also met other people on the other side in the astral world. So that's been very interesting too. A friend of mine who I had in Australia, she actually confirmed that we had met in the astral, and I described one part of our meeting, and then she described the other part, and it's exactly what had happened. So somehow we had met in the astral world, and it completely freaked us out. But when I said about Flaley, the second time that I met with her, she actually took me up into her ship in my astral body. So I just remember, I have to have slept a full night's rest before I can, get into the astral. So I'll wake up around 5:30 in the morning, and then when I go back to sleep, that's when I'm able to jump out of my body and do it properly. But she took me, and I ended up on this very, very large ship with very, very tall ceilings, and it was kind of almost like Greek or Roman architecture with these columns that were kind of protruding out of the wall, but they were more wavy-ish, and they were all white. And I remember a blue ceiling, and then I remember traveling down this hallway at a tremendous fast speed. That was so fast that I could feel the wind blowing past me, and I was just getting really dizzy that I closed my eyes. And then I came up to this door, which looked like a huge crystal, kind of like it was blue, like a ruby, but it was shaped like the the TIE fighters, the glass of the TIE fighters, that kind of shape. That's exactly what it looked like. And then it kind of split in half, and then it opened up like that. And then there was a smaller room in the inside, and then I could see 3 figures with blue skin and big heads, and they were all wearing white bodysuits. And then I walked into this room, and then one approached me. I couldn't see her face. Her face was kind of blurred. And then I gave her a hug, and I knew immediately that it was Flaley. And then, boom, I'm right back in my body, and I woke up. But it was as physical like this. When you're astral travel, you can feel your arms, you can feel wind blowing against your arms. It's as physical as anything, and you're very lucid, you're very in control, but you're weightless, and it's very liberating. It's incredible. So I have no fear of death because I've been there.
What is your process to getting there? How do you astral travel?
That's a good one. The first time it happened, it was hard because of the way I did it. So I was having insomnia, and I couldn't fall asleep. And so I had taken a melatonin to try and relax. And I'm basically relaxing, trying to let myself relax enough so I can go to sleep. But it was almost like I was watching. I was almost like I was being an observer, being conscious of myself, of being aware. Oh, I'm more tired now. Oh, I'm more tired. Oh, I'm really, really close. And I could feel this buildup in my pineal gland, this pressure that I was building up in my pineal gland. And I was focusing on my pineal gland of the energies to get that energy in my pineal gland. And then as I was just in the process of just about to fall asleep, boom, I fell out the back of my body at feels like hundreds of miles an hour, and I was like doing a high dive off of a board backwards, and then flying really fast. And I was out of my body, and I felt like Superman. I was flying, and then I realized, wait a second, I'm not dreaming. What the heck is going on here? And then I became paranoid because at the same time that I'm doing this, I was aware of my body back in bed, and I could hear the fan in my room still blowing. And it was like I went back to check on myself. Now I'm still out there flying, but some other part of me was able to go back and check on myself to listen and look around the room because I thought I heard somebody in the room at that point. And then I realized that there wasn't anybody there. Then I felt safe, and then I just went out back and started flying. Now the crazy thing was the next morning, because I thought I heard somebody standing next to my dresser. And that's why I went to check on my body. The next morning, when I was looking in my bedroom, I found on the floor, right in the spot where I thought I heard somebody, this little black stone that had never been there before. I have no idea where this black stone came from. It was the strangest thing. It's like, what the heck is this black stone doing here? And I'm thinking, the only thing I can make sense of it was that there was somebody who was there observing me, watching over me while I was astral traveling to make sure I was safe. And they left that just as a little token to let you know that, no, you weren't crazy. Somebody was here watching and keeping an eye on you. So I still keep that. I still have that black stone. I still kept it because that was really important. Now we're getting back, as you say, how do you astral travel? I do it the same way, but I do it a lot easier now. Now the thing was that, and I haven't talked about this, but the Ponte had done some physical enhancements on me. Okay, this goes back several years, where I had woken up one morning to liquid draining out of my left ear.
Oh yeah, I remember the blood on the pillow.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yes. I forgot about that. Yes.
Yeah. So that actually wasn't blood. That was like some kind of liquid that they put in my head that end up clearing out a lot of the heavy metals and and toxins and fluoride that was in my brain. And they left that stain. And my friend in Australia, he had the same procedure done to him too, because he confirmed it. And then they repeated the procedure a month later, and then my consciousness completely cleared. And I was able to access parts of my brain that I was never able to access before. So I can focus on a certain part of my brain and put pressure inside my brain to activate that area. I'm able to do that with my pineal gland and my amygdala. I can put pressure in the center of my head. I can consciously do that. And that is the trick in order to awaken your third eye to astral travel. That is the eye there. So what I started to do was practicing, after having a good night's rest and trying to go back to sleep, I would, as I'm starting to go to sleep, the other part about the astral travel that you know that you're going to do it is that your body starts to feel tingly, electrified. You'll feel it in your arms, you'll feel it in your legs, you'll feel like your whole body is starting to become like your atoms, like your molecules in your body you're starting to separate from the molecules in your body. And that's a signal there while you're putting the pressure on the pineal gland. And then I found that I was able to release part of my body very easily. I was able to lift my legs out of my physical body first. And then all of a sudden I'm like weightless. I was still attached to the head, but I was weightless. I could feel my body being weightless. So I eventually learned these body signals, knowing when I'm actually able to detach myself from my body. And then as I put the pressure on the pineal gland, and as I'm in the process of falling asleep and letting myself go unconscious, that's when I'm able then to leave my body much easier. And it's a simple trip. And then once you're in that state, you have to move as far away from your physical body as possible. So keep moving away. You'll feel yourself flying away from your body. The more and more that further you get away from your physical body, the more you stabilize, and then you're okay. Geez, I just gave away my secrets.
It was interesting with the energy kind of type feeling, electric type feeling. I don't know if it was astral travel, but I do remember some stages in my life. I had these reoccurring dreams where I would see this. It was like I just call it the purple doorway. Like it was just, if you can imagine, like looking out at the galaxy and you see all the stars, but like static, like a purple static actually, right? And every time I would be in these dreams or whatnot, floating through or whatever sometimes, or physically walking, I'd open up a door and then I would see this purple static in this doorway or in a window or in a hole. So anytime there was a gap, but when I entered into that purple static, that's when I felt this electrical thing and weightlessness and all these other things. This is when I was a kid. This just jogged a memory from back when I was a child. So maybe that was an experience, I don't know, or just some weird dreams, but I've always wondered about that.
You know what? You can leave the dream world and go into the astral, very similar to what you're talking about. I discovered that too, where maybe you can try this if you're conscious enough to try it. Where one time I was in a dream and I wanted to astral travel, and so what I did was I just fell forward. You know how you're expecting you're going to fall and you're going to hit the ground and flat face first.
Yeah.
No, you'll fall right through the floor, and you'll keep falling and you'll keep falling, and all of a sudden you'll feel weightless, and all of a sudden you're no longer in the dream. You're astral traveling. I did it that way one time. So try that. Try and fall forward, and let yourself fall and see if you can leave the dream state.
It's also interesting. One of my old band names was called Falling Forward.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's like a lot of old things coming up here. Falling Forward. Yeah.
Synchronicity. There you go.
2 F's back and forth. Like it was cool. Okay. I want to ask you about paranormal. We haven't talked about paranormal at all. Have you ever had any experiences in that spectrum?
The paranormal. To the extent of, you mean like ghosts or orbs or what?
Well, paranormal simply means not normal. So technically what you just talked about is paranormal. But if you want to follow the stereotype, then yes, ghosts and moving objects, all those things.
Sure. Okay. All right. I haven't had an experience with like moving objects. Well, I had an apport happen one time.
Okay.
So that was very interesting. Happened in my apartment, where I had this small little glass filter. It was for like a pipe, but it was like a glass filter for it, and I was cleaning out the pipe, and the glass filter accidentally fell down the sink. Okay, it went in the sink. It was gone. And then a couple weeks later, don't know how it happened, I went to go open my window of my apartment, and there on the windowsill was that filter.
Weird.
Yeah. I cannot explain that. I've had that happen. I've had some Mandela effects happen that completely freaked me right out. Personal Mandela effects. One being when I moved to this condo here. There's one thing that I asked from my ex, and that was we had a whole bunch of champagne flutes, and there was two sets of champagne flutes that I wanted. Now we all know all of our champagne flute sets because we used them every single New Year's, right? So she gave me two sets that I asked for, but then there was an extra champagne flute that was put in there. And I look at the champagne flute, and it says, Class of 96, Glendon College, York University, from our graduation. We never got champagne flutes for our graduation.
Oh, that's weird.
We graduated like 25, 30 years ago. I'm looking at this going, what the heck is this? I've never seen this before in my life. So I give her a call. I say, what is this? And she says, well, we had a set, and I kept mine, and I thought you'd like to have yours. And I said, we never got champagne flutes for our graduation. It was a Mandela effect. It's scary. It freaks the hell out of me. I can't look at this thing because it doesn't exist.
Did she, when she said that to her, did she remember that as well, or did she remember getting it?
No, there was no comment from her. I mean, she just texts me. She doesn't talk to me, but there's no comment. So I got this champagne flute, which technically doesn't exist. It's a Mandela effect. You know.
How do you think? How does that happen? How does that work? How is that possible?
The Mandela effect?
In your opinion?
Oh, geez. I've heard different theories. There's so many different theories that are floating around. You know, some people are saying it's CERN that's screwing around with timelines, which could possibly be a possibility. I've also, read from, the Sasquatch Message to Humanity books, written, which are conversations with a Sasquatch elder Camus, who talks about because of the planetary shifts that are going right now between third density and fifth density of planet Earth, that it creates these holes in the what do you call that donut? It's a donut of energy.
Like a toroidal field?
Toroid. That's it. Toroid of spinning energy, of time, of space-time. And he's saying that when we get closer to these splits of 3D energy to 5D energy, you'll sometimes get these toroid glitches, which is what's happening with the Mandela effect. That's what he explained. So there's different theories of what's going on. But when we talk about other paranormal experiences, the other thing that took place that was really incredible is in Chewelah, Washington, 2019. And I was introduced to Darrell Stokes, who has this incredible gift of being able to photograph the unseen world. So he is able to photograph orbs, and he photographs, he has tens of thousands of pictures of orbs. He and I went out one night during that Chewelah conference, and we took over 200 pictures with orbs. And some of these pictures are we're talking like tens of thousands of orbs. It looks like a snowstorm, okay? Or one orb that looks like a brain that's hovering over my head. Or another picture he took, which was what do you call it? It was a rainbow that actually descended onto my head. And he took two pictures of it. One was here, and then it descended on my head like this. And then he took another picture of this green orb that flew from behind him. He snapped a picture of it, and then he took another picture of it, and it formed right over my heart. So he's taken these crazy photographs. And then there's another photograph he took, and I didn't discover it until a couple years later. But it ended up, he actually photographed a fairy. It was an energetic being with butterfly wings that was as big as my head. It's okay, this is not Jurassic Park. This is this thing it was at the same level as me. It was flying this way of this large thing. And it's not the first time he's taken pictures of fairies. And I've seen some other pictures people who have taken pictures of fairies. So I know that fairies exist because I've seen them. And I've seen his pictures, and they're all the same. So I'm a believer in fairies. I was so much that doesn't surprise me anymore.
So it's interesting how you consider the Mandela effect and fairies to be associated with the word paranormal. So is it possible fairies are extraterrestrial?
I don't think they're extraterrestrial. They're known as elementals.
Okay.
So when I'm learning more, because I got a book that I'm reading about fairies right now, is they're very earth oriented. They protect the earth. They also protect animals. That's kind of their job. But they also apparently they do have magic. They can do things and help people in different ways. Like they can help people financially. They can do all kinds of things. So fairies apparently do have abilities if you believe in them. Okay. If you go to different parts of the world, like Ireland and England, they take fairies extremely seriously. Mm-hmm. You can't joke about them because they can be tricksters too if you're not a good person. Yeah. But I've seen pictures of fairies. I know other people who have had interactions with fairies. Somebody who saw them up in Mount Shasta. They also saw gnomes as well in Mount Shasta. So there's a lot of elementals. There's woodbend people. There's Sasquatch. There's fairies. These are all real. They're actually all real.
So then, if not extraterrestrial, then they would be terrestrial, local.
Terrestrial local.
Here, right?
Yes.
So if not paranormal, what kind of category would we put them in?
That's hard to say.
Like a cryptozoology.
You're more of an expert than I am.
I'm just doing a little brain game, little exercise to see.
I have no idea what categorize woodbend as. Like,
I'm always trying to see if
gnomes.
they are connected. Once we understand, like, these are labels that we apply based on things that we read and based on things that we've learned.
Yeah,
many perspectives. Cece just said interdimensional, so
some of them are interdimensional. Yeah.
And these are all characteristics of how and what and all these things of these beings. But it's interesting because if it's extraterrestrial and paranormal and monsters and beings, there's a lot more going on in this world than we know about on a day-to-day.
God, there's so much. And nothing surprises me anymore. From the shit that I've seen, what I've experienced, this world is more amazing and less physical than you can even imagine. All
right, so we got 2 minutes left. Tell everybody how they can find you. I got your website open.
Sure, yeah. That beautiful website, been redone, pyramidsonmars.com. Check that out. So pyramidsonmars.com. All my music is linked there. That'll take you to Bandcamp. You can listen to all my albums there. You can purchase my albums either physical, like CDs, or digital. It's all available. I also have guitar lessons from Mars that are available there too, if you want to learn the kind of lead stuff that I do on the guitar. There's lots of music videos from this website as well. All my magazine interviews and web design interviews are on the website there. If you want to listen, find out what people have said about my albums. And what else is there on there? All my ET interviews of my own personal experiences are on that website too. So if you want to learn more about hear more about the kind of stuff that has happened to me, it's all there. But what we're looking at there, that's my Neck Illusions designs.
Yeah, that's what I was just I saw that and I was like, hey, I want to take a closer look. So which is the original?
The one that your finger's on, that one right there.
This one right there?
Yeah.
And then all these.
Oh wait, no, sorry, not that one. The one in the middle.
This one?
DNA double that one right there. That's the original.
The resonance frequency one?
That's actually DNA double helix version 1.
Oh, version 1. Okay, so this is the original.
That's what I saw. That was what I saw in my dream, where those 3 aliens were handing my guitar back, and that's the design that was in my neck. Exactly that.
Well, that's interesting. That'll look really cool with some. What color strings you got? Just plain color.
Just regular strings, electric guitar strings.
I used to have a yellow Ibanez with like lime green strings. There's like
really?
Black and yellow Ibanez.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Cool, man. So lessons. So you teach people how to shred.
Yeah, I teach people about my my lead style. That's kind of geared towards right there. That's violin melodies. A lot of that. A lot of techniques that I've learned from Paul Gilbert and Yngwie Malmsteen and Nicola Paganini, the violin player. So
I really love that design on the fretboard. That is.
Thank you.
On the neck. That's nice. That's cool. I like that. All right, everybody. Thank you so much, Kevin, for being here. And
thanks for having me.
This is our first episode back after the Christmas break, so it might have been a little bit, too relaxed, maybe too comfortable, because I know you and all these other things, so I want to apologize. But I hope this was good for you, and I appreciate it. If you would like to stick around for the after chat, please stick around, and then we'll include you in the conversation. For those of you who are watching this live, stick around for the after chat as well. We're going to go through the comments and talk and get some updates and whatnot. If you're listening to the audio only replay, head over to youtube.com/the Experience Support Association so you can get the extra